You got a team, here's a word of the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to Footballguys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
Have the Las Vegas Raiders figured things out? Well, it certainly might look that way. Part 1 of the Week 14 preview here on the Audible. And Bloom, the Raiders we can make fun of. Sorry to Jason Potts, stoner degenerate Raiders fan out there. But, no, man, they're surging. They're figuring things out. And against the Rams, should be pretty easy math.
Yeah, we have now the stretch run. And there are definitely some teams, some of these 5 and 7 teams. There's no team, honestly, that shouldn't entertain thoughts. Well, I say no team that's been competitive that should feel like winning out. Why not? Or winning 4 if you're on bye this week. And the Raiders are definitely a team with momentum for fantasy football. There's no team whose stars have more momentum than the Raiders right now, and they're facing a Rams defense. We're just wondering about the Rams. Are they going to be mailing it in? They actually played the Seahawks pretty competitively last week, but turnaround, short week. And, how's that team doing? Baker Mayfield, yay. That's how your season is going. So it's the Jacobs and Adams show, and we'll watch. Remember, Jacobs isn't 100% healthy, but he's 100% effective for fantasy. Carr hasn't been a bad option now for about 5 straight weeks. It's been a pretty good option. And because you don't expect the Raiders to have to get out of their comfort zone in this game, then you don't love Mac Hollins or even Foster Moreau. We'll see Darren Waller is back next week. Should we even care about that? This offense is going to be concentrated on Jacobs and Adams. And we look ahead, sees to the Raiders' remaining schedule, and they've got New England, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Kansas City. So they do finish with some tough games, but Jacobs and Adams look unstoppable right now.
Unstoppable right now, and the Rams are just waiting for Baker Mayfield to be ready.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Go back to week 1, Cecil, and we say, where will this Ram season end up? Oh, fans will be clamoring for Baker Mayfield to start for them, huh?
We get Baker Mayfield and Russell Wilson on Christmas. Merry Christmas.
On the Nickelodeon.
Krampus.
On Nickelodeon, right? That should...
That's going to scare the kids.
Right, exactly. Parental discretion advised.
So any hot Rams takes this week?
No, nothing. Well, Cam Akers. If you think the Rams can be competitive here, maybe Cam Akers, but come on, like we said, Cease, if you trust a Rams running back, a fantasy football matchup that means anything, really, Cease, what struck me, because I thought we have to have something to say when we talk about the Rams, because there's nothing there for fantasy.
I just wanted to make fun of the people saying, go get Cam Akers.
Right. What's funny, I don't want to make fun of anybody, but what's interesting, well, that's true. Listen, so we're old enough, Cease, to have seen multiple chapters, epochs in the story of football in LA. Wasn't that our buddy Andrew Garda's handle back on the old Yeller? No football in LA.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Right. So I just wonder, Cease, because the Chargers don't have a fan base in LA. I'm sorry. And if for San Diego Chargers fans that are still LA Chargers fans, I love you. You deserve better. For the few LA Chargers fans, there might be some listening to the show. I'm not trying to slight you, but come on. There's not, and then with the Rams, okay, the Rams were barely in LA long enough to develop a fan base. Yes, they're fans of the old LA Rams. That's fair. But now this team is going to a long-term rebuilding, and sees a long-term rebuilding that may include almost none of the faces that won the Super Bowl, coaching or player-wise, and none of the important faces. So I wonder, is football in LA just going to be for people that move to Los Angeles, like transplants, to go see their home team? Basically, That's why we have football in Los Angeles.
It'll be like the Colorado Rockies, where they always sell out in Coors Field. It's always number 5 in attendance or number 1 in attendance for the other teams.
Right.
Because Denver's a transplant city. At least now anyway. So there we go. Jets and Bills. This one's more interesting and exciting. On the Jets side, can Mike White keep it up? And if you had to go to the waiver wire to get quarterback help, 6 teams on bye in week 14. This is just stupid. It's just stupid. I think I said it on the waiver show. But what will Mike White do? Well, ignite Garrett Wilson, right? Ignite the Corey Davis being fantasy relevant. Yeah, but against the Bills, how much ignition will there be?
What a game. We wouldn't have circled this one on the calendar back in September saying this is going to be a barn burner, but it is. It could be a snow game. It is December. It is Buffalo. Current forecast is temperature in the 30s, a wintry mix of precipitation. I don't know if that's going to slow down these offenses or get them out of their comfort zone because these are cold weather teams. Now, Mike White has given that passing dimension to the Jets. This isn't necessarily not just because of the weather and the setting, because the Bills defense is still at least a top half of the league defense. Really, it's going to be, I think, Garrett Wilson and maybe Corey Davis. Not loving Tyler Conklin so much. The player we like in this offense for fantasy right now is Zonovan Knight. We're going to watch Michael Carter's practice reports, but even if Carter's back this week, you don't expect him to get his full workload if he was healthy. Knight has looked good. They trusted Knight over Ty Johnson and James Robinson before Carter got hurt. After Carter got hurt, Knight's given them no reason to go away from that. So I think Zonovan Knight, he's again, players that were not on anybody's radar. You had to have your Matt Waldman RSP to even know who Zonovan Knight was coming into this season or be a draft geek like us. And now here we are in week 14 talking about him as a valuable fantasy commodity. And for the Jets, this is kind of a playoff game, although I think that if they keep playing at the level they're at, they'll do enough to get into the playoffs, which is quite a story. The question is, who will the quarterback be? And if Mike White can complete the sweep, remember, they beat the Bills with Zach Wilson somehow, and if they can beat them Mike White, maybe we won't see Wilson, even though Robert Saleh is saying we will.
Yeah, and then we'll see Josh Allen go out there and go ham on this team. Well, at least that's the plan. But if it's a snow game, wish the Bills had a snow plow, back in the day, and Antoine Smith, like stuff like that. And hell, even Thurman, Kenneth Davis, right, could be their snow plows. They don't really have that. We talked plenty about James Cook on the waiver wire, but if it's a snow game, James Cook's a sports car.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. And of course, trust your normal assets that you would for Buffalo. But let's talk about it and how at home they'll get their revenge against their division rival.
Yeah, Josh Allen had a rough time passing the ball, had a couple of picks the first matchup, did score twice on the ground. We're not putting Josh Allen on the bench, but we're not expecting a ceiling game for this passing game. So Stephon Diggs, yes, he's in. I think he had something like, I don't know, 5 for 93 or something like that in the first game. But Gabriel Davis, Dawson Knox, who's ice cold right now. I don't think we're looking. Isaiah McKenzie has a modest floor, a modest ceiling. But is this more movement towards a balanced offense with the injection of James Cook? And I think that's the thing we're watching the closest for fantasy here is the split between James Cook and Devin Singletary and how James Cook looks. And he looked dynamic last week if he's involved in the passing game. And doesn't it make sense if it's not going to come easy for Josh Allen in this passing game against the Jets, that we will see more passes to Cook? He caught 6 last week. So I think Cook is almost a must start, even though we could be disappointed and see this be another backfield like, say, Miami, where one week they decide they want to put somebody, the next week they want to flip it, and then they flip it back. I think that Cook has enough momentum that we're going to play him, and it relegates Devin Singletary to more of a desperation play. But the real football story here is way more interesting for fantasy, partially because I don't think this is a ceiling game for either one of these offenses, and partially because this is where the Jets measure up. And by the way, based on everything that happened last week, the Bills back in the number 1 seed.
Back in the number 1 seed. Let's see what can happen on Sunday when we talk about AFC North. We talk about the Browns and the Bengals. And can Deshaun Watson look better? It's natural that he would bloom like over time, but then the Bengals defense comes for him. And if the Bengals defense can get after him, which they will Deshaun Watson look better? There's a chance he might not.
No, I think he'll look worse, and he looked terrible last week. This is a Cincinnati pass defense that frustrated Patrick Mahomes last week. They made Patrick Mahomes look like he was going to have to work for everything against them. And this is a surging defense that you're staying away from Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying bench Amari Cooper, but I could imagine some start-sit question seats where, Amari Cooper and I would say you're probably benching Amari Cooper this week just because we don't expect a lot from this passing game. There's no momentum from Watson. There's a lot of momentum from the Cincinnati defense. And it also would make sense for the Browns to just run a lot of Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt's coming on. We're trying to see if there's anything there for fantasy down the stretch. You're not going to necessarily play him in this one, but he was running better last week. But this should be a game where Nick Chubb gets 25, 28 carries, assuming Cleveland's defense can keep Cincinnati within shouting distance. So Donovan Peoples-Jones, we'll see if Njoku's going to play. Really, we're still gathering information to see if Njoku's potentially a drop. If he doesn't get in practice this week, you have to wonder when he's going to come back. Deshaun Watson not exactly giving this offense the boost we expected, but it wasn't a rousing start for Deshaun Watson. And meanwhile, Cease, you've got this Cincinnati team that it looked like this really rough schedule, right? Tennessee, Kansas City, and they still have Tampa, New England, Buffalo left on the schedule. But it seems like with each opponent, they meet the strength of the opponent and surpass it and get stronger, right? They take their essence, right?
Yeah, so it's Mortal Kombat.
It's really fun watching this Cincinnati team right now. And I get a similar vibe to what we saw from them down the stretch and in the playoffs last year, which is it's Joe Burrow, right? There's no interference, no distractions. This team is focused. They know how to get the most out of themselves. And I don't think there's any way Deshaun Watson's going to come in and burst their bubble.
Yeah, let's start making a bunch of noise and screaming because Andy and Renee is watching with no sound because stupid work meeting. Stupid work. I want people to remember that last year it is Broncos show. There was a Broncos-Bengals game with both of them on the verge of the playoffs. That did actually happen, and Drew Lock handed the ball to whatever Bengals defender that was, and the Bengals won, and the Bengals won on the Super Bowl. And I'm glad that Cincinnati had their struggles earlier.
Yeah,
because now there's no room for error. It's not like they're on the edge or whatever, but they've already had that, right? You don't want to be rolling and then get to December and January and you're like, we're undefeated or we only lost one game. Like, no, they took their lumps.
Yeah.
Now they're here to dish out those lumps. Maybe now with more Joe Mixon bloom and like Zonovan Knight, Samaje Perine's done enough that when Mixon's back, we'll keep using Perine enough as a flex play. Hell, both Mixon and Perine might be flex plays the first week back, but we'll watch his injury status Wednesday morning recording. But getting healthy, rolling, sounds great if you're a Cincinnati fan.
Yeah, and I think you're right to highlight the backfield. It's just what we're going to be watching because Samaje Perine, he's a big part of this story, right? The way he's running the ball and what it is, and Cecil, it's your motorboater. I mean, this is what you've been highlighting. This is a quality that you love in running backs, and Samaje Perine showing that it's a quality that not just translates to yards and first downs and points, but it contributes to your team's mentality. And it's like Jerome Bettis, right? When the Steelers got the bus, it really was the rug that tied the room together for that team. And what it is with Perine, because you don't think of the Bengals as a finesse team necessarily, but when Perine was out there, they became a power team. They became a team that was going to match the intensity of the defense. And it turns your offense into more of an aggressor when you have a tackle-breaking running back and you have a running back who's going to finish runs and get extra yards and really make the defense weary. So how can you put that back in the bottle? I think that it makes a lot of sense for this to become a full-blown committee and Samaje Perine to be the early down and third down part. I mean, I'm not sure how this works out because Perine is the guy who can get you in 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, and Perine's also the better passing down back. So maybe you have more plays for Joe Mixon in space. You just become kind of like a Zeke Pollard kind of thing. So this is going to be something to watch for fantasy, not just because, well, what do I have in Joe Mixon, but what do I have in Samaje Perine? Maybe someone I can continue to use. Hayden Hurst is going to be out with that calf injury. Not sure when he's going to be back, but in the meantime, with Jamar Chase back and looking great, and I love they did the right thing, that they didn't bring him back in the first week he could practice, let him get reconditioned. Dr. Gene's been teaching us about this stuff for a long time, and he just looked like his good old self. So, again, a blip cease. They've been through their struggle already. They've been through, remember the first game without Jamar Chase? It was against Cleveland, and Cleveland dominated them. Well, this one's going to be a little bit different. You might even go with Tyler Boyd with no Hurst out there. Joe Burrow continues to get better. And Cease again. I mean, it's perfect, really, that, and I was one of those people. A lot of us were one for those people, even though Cincinnati won the AFC, went to the Super Bowl, was basically a play away from winning the Super Bowl. Did a lot of different plays. If you flip that play, they win the Super Bowl. We're talking about AFC favorites this year. Kansas City, Buffalo, right? Oh, what about Denver with Russell Wilson, right? Cincinnati, no one's talking about Cincinnati. And that is something I think that Joe Burrow feeds from, that this team feeds from. And it's really fun watching them get the best out of themselves, not just in spite of people underrating them, but maybe because they're underrating them.
Well, and then look, we just talked about the Rams. The Rams got one, and they won't be back.
Yeah,
The Bengals might get multiple.
Yeah,
They didn't win last year, but they might get multiple. So what's the best plan? The short term or the long term, multiple or one? It's an interesting question, and it's much more interesting than our next game up, which is Texans and Cowboys. Oh boy, yeah, there you go, Bloom. Texans side, what? Nico Collins, is he my sleeper of the week? My God, why would you rely on any sort of Texan? Like poor Damian Pierce, and Brandon Cooks is banged up, so Nico Collins, can't get real excited about the Houston side, Bloom.
Well, look, this is how it is for the Texans. Davis Mills was so bad a few weeks ago. They said, well, we can't keep doing this. We have to try something else. Right. They tried something else, and they said, we can't keep doing this. We have to go back to Davis Mills.
Go back.
Yeah. So, well, poor Houston. This is where we are in the state of professional football in Texas. Yeah, Houston is way behind Dallas. You want to play the Dallas defense. And Damian Pierce, and not even really a sleeper of the week. Maybe he breaks off a long touchdown run. I don't know. Maybe Nico Collins. Maybe Brevin Jordan, who is getting more involved in the passing game as a desperation tight end play. There are 6 teams on bye. Do you feel lucky? Because fans of the Texans don't feel lucky right now. They feel like they're being punished.
Okay, Cowboys fans feeling pretty good. Michael Gallup GMs, they're feeling pretty good, right? Banged up, what banged up? So it's going to work for everybody. So start your Cowboys week. That's the easy take, Bloom. You'll be a little more flowery with what you say. So let's hear it.
Yeah. Texans defense is the better side of the ball, but Zeke, Pollard, you like them both just like last week. This is the Dallas Cowboys marauding through the AFC South. CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, you may not get those touchdowns. That makes him more of a boom bust play, but there's momentum here. Even good old Dak Prescott, not necessarily going to win your week. He's not going to lose your week unless we have we had 4 rushing touchdowns last week, and Dak still had a solid game. Dalton Schultz had a little bit of a floor game for us, but yeah, we're counting on all of our Dallas commodities to have good games here. It's good to see that Dallas, Mike McCarthy, not afraid of running up the score. And every time we do Dallas, every time we preview them, or recap, I always think this team's got everything in place except the head coach. Can they overcome their head coach and play up to their ceiling in the playoffs? That's really the story.
Mm-hmm. And there will be a moment where it's like a McCarthy decision that costs him everything.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not just a decision, Cecil. I like this as a tangent because, at this point in the season, a lot of these teams, a lot of these games, there's not a lot to say.
Right.
But it's not just a decision because I think it's one of those things, Cecil. The players know. Players know. I mean, a lot of players, they're aware. They're aware of what's going on with the other 31 teams, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They know Mike McCarthy's reputation. So it's not even, Cecil, it's almost like, I go back to last year's game against the Niners in the playoffs, and they almost felt defeated before they took the field, in the sense that because Mike McCarthy, it's not just the reputation and the decisions he's made. I think it's just his aura, right? I think it's just what he doesn't transmit confidence. And because of that, I think the whole team was tight. And I think that's, if anything, Cease, they need like a Clinton Portis to come in and be, was it Southeast Jerome and all of his characters, right? They need somebody to be the focus other than Mike McCarthy. And like I said, for this team to kind of forget that don't take on Mike McCarthy's vibe or personality. And Dak Prescott, bless his heart, I think just isn't a strong enough personality because he's a good teammate, right? I mean, he's not going to be that guy. He's not going to be Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. So it's a really interesting story because I think we're going to, like you said, we're going to see this come to a head at some point in a playoff game against Philadelphia or against Tampa Bay or against Minnesota. And I hope for Cowboys fans that it's not just another chapter in the Mike McCarthy failure chronicles.
Failure chronicles indeed. Let's move on as we've got 3 games left, 6 teams on bye. It's so dumb. Week 14 preview. Vikings and Lions is way better than we thought it would be, Bloom. Way better. And it's the Lions that are doing it on that side. to make it better, because the Vikings have been fantastic all season long, and they'll be fantastic with their normal assets. We're not going to surprise you with any hot Vikings takes this week, because you already know who to start. You already know who to play. You already know who to trust. So let's get through that, Bloom, so we can talk about the Lions, because that's the exciting side.
And Detroit almost won the first matchup of this game. Remember, it was a KJ Osborne drive, 2 passes for 28 yards and a touchdown, 2 catches, 28 yards each catch. And Thielen had an okay game. Justin Jefferson only had 3 for 14 in that game. Don't bench Justin Jefferson, okay?
Never.
Don't be surprised if Justin Jefferson underperforms expectations. Does that mean you pivot to Osborne? Does that mean you pivot to Adam Thielen? Maybe, but this is a lot better Detroit defense than that defense, and that defense actually did a decent job against Minnesota. Minnesota won last week against the Jets, but it wasn't because their offense was a juggernaut, okay? So, again, this is a good moment to say, don't look at Detroit's year-to-date stats on defense. Just look at the last 4 or 5 weeks. You're going to get a better picture of this, at least not being a defense that we're going to pick on. So, yes, you're going to play Jefferson. Yes, you're going to play Cook. Yes, you're going to play Hawkinson facing his old team. He was on the Lions side first time these two teams met. But I'm not sure I'm looking at Cousins, Thielen, Osborne as options here, because this just looks like a game where Minnesota's offense is going to be on the floor side, not the ceiling side of their performance. Meanwhile, Cease, the Detroit offense, it's not just performing at its ceiling. I don't know if we've seen their ceiling for this year.
Exactly. And I don't know what it's going to make you exclaim, because it's going to be awesome. I love D. Smitty talking about Failure Chronicles, not greenlit for Sorry Joe Plus.
No.
You know, as the chat room was chatting, I thought we should have a history of cuss word show on Sorry Joe Plus, right? Yeah. And because the Lions, they're going to make you cuss. And maybe that's an exclamation of joy. What makes me cuss is this running back situation, because just when we thought DeAndre Swift, I guess Justin Jackson's going to get, no, here comes DeAndre Swift and Jamal, my good buddy. He still does it, right? He's still doing it. Watching Jameson Williams, Vivek says that in the chat room, like watching Jameson closely on the bench. Maybe in the sleeper of the week. Maybe sleeper of the week. I'm going to force Jameson Williams to sleeper of the week until he hits like Samaje Perine, because Jameson Williams is flipping awesome.
Yeah.
So there's my cuss word, Bloom. Sorry, Joe. Let's talk about the Lions.
Yeah, I wonder with Williams again, that item that Jake Glazer put out there that he was going to be a punt gunner. They didn't punt last week. That shows you how good the offense is playing right now. Is it one of those situations where we could easily see Jameson Williams barely involved on offense, and then some week of practice he's something he does that's out of our view, then gives them the green light? We'll see. Sleeper of the week, it's going to come through one of these weeks, like you said, Cease. What we know, as long as it's Jared Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown, everything's going to hum in this offense. And there's a lot of stats that have been floating around, like Jared Goff, when Amon-Ra St. Brown is on the field, in terms of DVOA or EPA or whatever acronym you want to use to measure effectiveness for football, he's one of the best. Top five quarterback whenever St. Brown's on the field, and DJ Chark is healthy, and DeAndre Swift is healthy. I think Swift and St. Brown obviously are in lineups. Chark looks like a solid wide receiver 3 flex play. Remember, this Minnesota defense, look what they gave up to the Jets last week. 5 field goals in that game. Imagine if the Jets were scoring touchdowns, or Braxton Berrios could catch one. The Cowboys put 40 points on them not that long ago, and that game was such a blowout. If the Cowboys were playing all out, that might have been 60, right? So this Lions offense is going to be able to get after this Vikings defense. So you love Goff in this one. And I'm saying, who's up for Detroit running the table? Who's up for Detroit going 10-7 and making the playoffs? Because the Jets, the Panthers, the Bears, the Packers, this might be their toughest game left.
And we want to see good football.
Yeah, and this team is playing good football on both sides of the ball.
This team is playing good football, and that's the thing. Like, playoffs, shake it up, baby, shake it up. You need to dig out your Lions shirt from the closet.
Oh, yeah.
Dig that thing out, baby. Yeah. So I feel like this preview is like a roller coaster ride, because there's the click, 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 oh, God, we're going to talk about the Texans Cowboys. And then it's like, we're going to talk about Vikings and Lions. And then, well, Bloom, we're back to the boring part, because it's Jaguars and Tennessee. Now, Tennessee's interesting stuff is about John Robinson, which we may or may not get to talk about fully, but Jaguar side of things. Okay, Oh man. I hate the Trevor Lawrence injury. I
Yeah.
hate when we're like, we're seeing steps, we're seeing development, we're seeing move towards, the kid getting it, and then snap, and then they have to replay it a million times. Like, okay, Jaguar side, let's hurry through this, Bloom. It makes me depressed.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing because this is for fantasy was going to be a good spot. Came into last week coming off that big win against Baltimore, and then last week then Detroit humbled them greatly. So Lawrence is dinged. Travis Etienne's in a really tough matchup. I'm not saying bench Travis Etienne, but if you're playing this by the numbers and you're looking at what this Tennessee run defense did, what did Miles Sanders have last week? Like 12 for 26 and a touchdown, something like that. So Etienne, if they were getting him more involved in the passing game, if he had that passing game involvement that had been heralded since they drafted him, then you'd be feeling better about playing him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he only amounts to 10 or 12 points in this one, partially because Trevor Lawrence is dinged. You're probably still going to play Christian Kirk because this is a Tennessee pass defense that can be vulnerable, and it's that funnel defense where it's just futile to run the ball against them, but you've got a banged up Trevor Lawrence throwing the ball. Zay Jones, PPR, will at least give us 7, 8, 9 points. Had 3 drops last week. At least, he's still remaining involved. Evan Ingram, maybe. And really, it's Marvin Jones making plays, Jamal Agnew making plays after the catch. Maybe this is a Jamal Agnew sleeper of the week game, Cease. That makes sense, right? That's your target that can add value after the catch in this one. Maybe he's doing some of the stuff we thought Travis Etienne was going to do as far as getting in space, making people miss. But it's the players having to make plays after the catch. This is not an offense that stretches the field, and this is a Tennessee defense that's going to shut down the run, so it's going to fall on a banged up Trevor Lawrence's shoulders to face a team. Again, can't emphasize this enough. They're in first place, comfortably in first place. They fire the GM during the season, which isn't as weird as firing not weird, but jarring. I don't know. What's the GM doing during the season? Not as much as when it's the off season, but they had to pay him 4 years.
They extended him in January.
Yeah, 2027. So he's getting 2023 through 2026 just for free because, well, that's what we're all wondering.
Yeah, because I don't know yet, Bloom, but you bet your ass going to find out.
Yeah.
Might take a month. Might take getting in front of people and getting liquored up. Allegedly, whatever I'm going to say. Yeah. Right. That's just doing business, right? So it's the handshake. We're going to have some cold pops. You'll tell me some stuff. I'll tell you some stuff, and we'll learn some stuff. But yeah, that's weird. I mean, I know we got to talk about on the field stuff, but John Robinson has, and it's not like he's hit on everything. Isaiah Wilson, right. And traded away AJ Brown, just got their ass kicked by AJ Brown. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, but whoever takes it over, you are looking at a post Derrick Henry team.
Right.
That's not good with no quarterback. Like, oh, this going to be rough. So, you're going to take that GM job. You're going to be happy. You know who they should hire? Oh, Bloom, hot take.
Yeah.
They should hire Adam Peters.
Oh,
He's going to be, he was almost a GM last time around. And if you make any moves at GM, oh God, here's another Lassie bark. Some of the stuff I told you off air. If there's another team that removes their general manager because he paid a quarterback, I wonder who that could be. Adam Peters. If you could get Adam Peters back in the building, if you're Denver, that'd be a godsend. Their scouting department and everything hasn't been the same since Peters left for San Francisco. So yeah, anyway, the off-field stuff's more interesting with Tennessee, so let's get to it.
Yeah, it's really hard to put that together. And you can't necessarily say they're going to go in a totally different direction than John Robinson because I don't know what exactly it was that got him fired. The A.J. Brown trade, I guess. I don't know. Henry, this is the test to see what Henry's going to be worth down the stretch. Now, this isn't as good a matchup as coming up. You're going to see him get, the Chargers, right? The Texans, the Cowboys. Well, that Chargers matchup is the one that we really have circled next week, but he's faced some tough defenses. So it isn't just that he's slowing down or just that defenses are teeing off on him, but it may well be that he's slowing down. And Jacksonville, this is a team that he sometimes just runs over, steps on the way to the end zone. And this is a team that also has contained him at times. So this is going to be wide range of possible outcomes. You want some reassurance. You're going to play Derrick Henry down the stretch anyway, but you want to see a ceiling game from here. Don't know if we're going to see Traylon Burks. I would expect we're not at this point. When we see a concussion like that, when players motionless on the field for a while. So does that mean it's Chiggy Okonkwo? Certainly, if you're looking for a tight end this week, again, Cecil, you've been heralding him for a while, and he's arriving. I don't think we're looking at Nick Westbrook-Ikhine or Robert Woods or anybody else from this passing game. And what you hope for is it's a Derrick Henry game, so they don't need the passing game. They don't need it to be Ryan Tannehill on the passing game against a Jacksonville team with the air deflating out of the balloon.
You need to say, this one's for Killer B.
Yeah.
Jimmy wanted a half-baked reference, so I was just like, oh, so many references, so many, and so little time. So now here we go to the wee part again of the roller coaster. That is week 14. It is Eagles and it is Giants. And well, I hope it's on the Giants side, because if they put up a fight, then this will be a fun game. If they roll over, the Eagles will roll them. And they will roll them in multiple ways. So Slim Reaper, A.J. Brown, and Miles Sanders, and Jalen Hurts, and the list goes on and on and on. Go down the list. Is someone else from the Eagles my sleeper of the week? Stay tuned to find out.
Cease. Who do you not want to play the week after you play an overtime game? What team do you not want to face? From the offensive side, I have this as here's a reference. Help us, Daniel Jones. You're our only hope, because that's it. That's the offense. It's not Saquon Barkley against this revitalized Eagles run defense. Not that you're going to bench Barkley, but again, the ceiling games aren't coming. They're not getting Barkley involved in the passing game the way that we had hoped. Saquon Barkley. Again, we're watching to see if he's used up. Is it going to be? Oh, I don't know. Wait, was I supposed to do the Philadelphia side first?
Philadelphia side first, yeah.
Sorry. Well, because I was just thinking about how hopeless this is going to be for the Giants to have to play a grueling overtime game and face Philadelphia. For Philadelphia, sorry. Washington, I'll flip this and say divisional opponents. Washington did not fear the Eagles. Remember, Washington beat the Eagles 32-21. And before we were thinking of Washington as a respectable team, it was kind of the game that made us think of them as a respectable team. So do the Giants have that? Do they have some of that aura? I don't know, because again, they're going to be coming in a little bit tired here. Jalen Hurts is slinging it. Did they get a GM fired? A.J. Brown, Slim Reaper. Quez Watkins a little banged up here. By the way, I wanted to mention, speaking of injuries, chat room telling us that Michael Carter practiced in full. We were talking about the Jets, so maybe Zonovan Knight, more sleeper of the week than a solid running back to play. But let's get back to the Philadelphia. Miles Sanders is going to be running better in this one, I think. Not as tough of a matchup, still pretty fresh, now over his career high in carries, staying healthy, setting himself up for a good market in free agency. Philadelphia humming, and the Giants. Yeah, this one you probably pencil in as an L, but if they can make a competitive season, like you say, you have more hope for them.
Yeah, and Lester says he's going to bench Saquon in our chat room.
I mean, look,
Bloom, your recommendations for Saquon Barkley fantasy GM.
Yeah, look, I think that this is a point where in this matchup, if we were seeing Saquon Barkley looking more creatively used, right, detached more from the formation, even just run some screen passes, do something. The Giants don't seem to be that inclined to give him chances to add value to the offense without having to take punishment. And again, I go back to that 35 carry game against the Texans and wonder if that in hindsight is going to be that turning point for Barkley's season. So it depends on the other option. Now there is 6 teams on bye. See, where it gets more interesting is as we go forward, if Derrick Henry doesn't pick it up, if Saquon Barkley doesn't pick it up, and you have another option like Ezekiel Elliott or someone like that, is that when even a Jamal Williams, these players who we know have a good James Conner that have a good chance to get a touchdown in any given week. What do those decisions start being filed under? Don't overthink it, or don't ignore, as Bob Harris would say, divorce the names from the numbers. Because if you look at the game logs for Saquon Barkley, it doesn't look that different. The touchdowns are there at least, but it's not that different from Dameon Pierce lately. So we'll see. It's a good question. And unfortunately, I think in this game, it's not going to be a good game to judge the Giants offense. So, maybe Daniel Bellinger, because you don't think the outside passing game is going to be high. Darius Slayton and Isaiah Hodgins against James Bradbury and Darius Slay. doesn't sound good for the Giants.
Yeah, does not sound good or fun or, well, pretty much anything. All right, Bloom, we've come to that time. It's K1's favorite time. It's my favorite, your favorite time, everybody's favorite time, because you watch the Audible, you listen to the Audible, and then you patiently wait for our sleeper of the week.
It's time for the Sleeper of the Week, powered by Sleeper.
Kenneth Gainwell can be more than just the king of garbage time. And I know Gardner Minshew, rich man, poor man, may come into the game, but we also have to note that Gainwell's touches, most of them last week, came with the starters. So, yeah, you're looking at a team that could roll, and you're looking for a backup that could roll as a sleeper of the week. For me, I'll put my chips on Kenneth Gainwell. Bloom, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to take your garbage time, see it, and raise you Malik Davis. There's your sleeper of the week. That game's going to be over at halftime. Malik Davis had a touchdown last week to finish off the Colts, and the second half might belong to him in this game.
Yeah, that's right. And that is a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. It is a week 14 preview, part 1. Part 2 programming note will be on an hour earlier.
Yeah.
Getting some housework done. So there you go. So we'll be on an hour earlier tomorrow morning, and we'll be right here for you for 6 games, because 6 teams on bye. It's so stupid.
We need that fantasy football consultant. 345 Park. What is it? What's the name of the
142? It's 2-3. I don't know. It's Pawn Park. I've been there. I've been to Roger Goodell's office.
It is. It's 345 Park. So
345 Park. Okay.
We need to start some sort of snappy slogan, like fantasy represented at 345 Park, or like, look after the people who made your sport even bigger, or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But fantasy football deserves a place at the table.
Yes, and then when they have the owners meetings, there can be the fantasy GM there as well. See, because he's running the league. All right, that is a wrap, everyone. Make sure to do all those YouTube things, please, and thank you. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Until next time, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. He's Sigmund, I'm Cecil. We are the Audible, everyone. Stay tuned and stay frosty.